Coming up on today's show, I'm going to tell you the truth about Jimmy Garoppolo and get into the latest Jimmy G trade rumors. Also, George Kittle on another planet right now, and the numbers are insane over the last several weeks. But first, I didn't sleep much last night, working off the adrenaline from that win in overtime against the Bengals yesterday. My goodness, what a performance between two very solid playoff teams. But who cares if I didn't sleep last night, because I was thinking about this football team so much. So if you're like me, and if you're still working off the adrenaline from that overtime victory, hit that thumbs up icon, like the video, and let's start today's show. Niner Gang, welcome into the 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Senior. Before we hop into today's show, want to give a shout out to Manscaped for making today's episode of the 49ers Report possible. Right now, you can get 20% off and free shipping on the best men's grooming product tools by going to manscaped.com/49ers. If you're looking for the best holiday gift, Manscaped has you hooked up. That link is in the description as well as the comment section of this video. We start off today's show with looking at what Jimmy Garoppolo did against the Cincinnati Bengals yesterday. He was really clutch. The haters won't admit to that, but the stats, the numbers, the eye test tells you otherwise. And also Peter King with new reporting as far as the 49ers plans for Jimmy Garoppolo here in 2022 going into the offseason. First, let's take a look at what he was able to put forward yesterday on the stat sheet. Jimmy Garoppolo, folks, was really, really clutch when the team needed him to be. 27 of 41, 296 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and this is when he was under siege, under fire all throughout the day because the right side of that 49ers offensive line with Daniel Brunskill and Tom Compton was getting manhandled all throughout the afternoon in Cincinnati. But he was tough, and while he lets the pocket break down on him far too often, I really like the resolve that Garoppolo showed, and at the end of regulation, gave the team an opportunity to win the football game before Robbie Gould somehow missed that game-winning field goal, and then in overtime, drives the offense 75 yards down the field, all capped off by Brandon Ayuk's little toe drag swag, getting that ball past the pine line. Now, with Jimmy Garoppolo, he's kind of a polarizing figure, right? But all of these things can be true with Jimmy G. It's one of those arguments where both things can be true, and while there are facts about him sometimes being a lackluster and average quarterback, you also have to look at the other side and admit, damn, Jimmy Garoppolo sometimes is really good, and right now he's playing better than the likes of Derek Carr of the Las Vegas Raiders. And over the last month and a half, he's been better than quarterbacks like Dak Prescott. Those are just the facts. Now, all of these things are true about Jimmy G. He is a straight-up winner. All-time record as a starter, 31-13, and he's been fantastic in terms of winning games for the San Francisco 49ers. While he has won a lot of games, when you do watch him, you see that he's physically limited. He's not an athletic specimen like a Justin Herbert or a Lamar Jackson, and he's not going to uncork a ball 70 yards nearly down the field like Herbert did yesterday when even the camera operator was like, damn, that ball's still traveling. He's not going to run the football like a Lamar or a Trey Lance, but sometimes you don't have to be insanely athletically gifted to be a very solid quarterback. Look no further than the GOAT that is Tom Brady, especially Joe Montana, factoring him into that conversation as well. With Jimmy G, sometimes he drives you crazy because he misfires high. His accuracy wanes throughout some games. He goes on ugly stretches and does throw bad interceptions, but these things are also true, and they're very, very important. Jimmy Garoppolo is a well-respected leader, and you can tell he has the respect among those players in the locker room. He is a guy who players do like to rally around. There's a large sample size behind that. And while Jimmy Garoppolo, even in some games where he's not playing well, he does find some way to come through in crunch time, in the guts of the game, to produce pretty clutch performances. I'd say what he did against the Seahawks 2 weeks ago was pretty clutch. The Niners just couldn't dot the exclamation point. And what he did yesterday at the end of regulation and in overtime was really, really impressive. At the end of the day, Jimmy G played like a G. 6 of 6 on that final drive for 77 yards, made some really big throws. Of course, George Kittle had bailed him out at some points. But Jawan Jennings, that back shoulder ball that he threw to him on that final drive, straight up beautiful, because that's just an opportunity in a situation where you have to allow your playmaker to make a play, and Jauan Jennings did just that. As for the latest Jimmy Garoppolo trade rumors, Peter King in his Football Morning in America column saying this: I'm told the Niners have not made up their minds at all about how to handle their quarterback situation in 2022 and beyond. They shouldn't be. How do you know how Garoppolo will play down the stretch and into a playoff run if that's the fate of this season? I'm also told the Niners have been impressed with Garoppolo's career on the line, with how he's handled this weird year, with Lance being the third pick in the draft, with Garoppolo expected to just handle things like a pro. He has. And Garoppolo really has handled this entire situation like a pro. What this all comes down to, the future path for the Niners organization, it's all about Trey Lance's readiness to play. Garoppolo is going into his final year of his contract next year. He's on the hook for about $27 million in base salary, and the Niners are coming up on an offseason where they're probably going to have to give the bag to Nick Bosa, who now has 14 sacks, and Deebo Samuel, who's been one of the best offensive weapons in the NFL. And we know this about Jimmy G as well. Kyle Shanahan loves the dude. And while they go back and forth, and Kyle Shanahan has chewed him out at times, how do you get mad at the end of the day when Garoppolo does come through in crunch time like he has all year long and really throughout his career, whether it be with the Patriots or the Niners? As for what Shanahan said about Garoppolo after that game, highly praised, of course. Jimmy's one of my favorite people that I've ever coached. He's a hell of a dude. He's not trying to hide anything. I also don't want to downplay it and say this whole situation is not a big deal. It's a huge deal. It's really hard on him, but he came in with the right mindset all the way back in OTAs. He hasn't gotten sideways at all. No matter what he hears, he's been the exact same guy I've known the 4 years prior. And that's given us a chance to fight through this year. It's given us the chance to be where we're at right now. As for where the Niners are at right now, 7-6 on the year, 6th place in the NFC, firmly entrenched in the NFC playoff picture, with a really good opportunity to make a run here in December, in January. And I think when everything is clicking for the Niners, when everybody's healthy, when they play up to their standards and capabilities and ability, they can compete with anybody in the NFL playoffs. Let's say they have to go on the road in the first round to take on the Bucs, the Packers, or the Cowboys. Niners can hang with those teams, in my opinion. And I want everybody, and I have to give Jimmy Garoppolo credit for how he's handled this entire situation. The Niners move up to number 3 to draft Trey Lance. Obviously, he's the future of the franchise. They drafted Lance to replace Jimmy Garoppolo. And I like to make these comparisons a lot because oftentimes we put athletes on a pedestal and we forget that these guys are actually real people too. Imagine if in your job, your employer hired somebody to replace you. Do you think it would affect your mindset? Do you think it would alter your psyche? Do you think it would impact your performance? Yes, because that is human nature. But for Jimmy Garoppolo, the Niners maneuvering up into the draft to take Trey Lance, knowing that Lance is breathing down his neck, going through a competition throughout the offseason and this year, fending him off is not easy, and Garoppolo deserves credit for that. So Niner gang, I mentioned earlier, Jimmy G, a very polarizing figure. The perception of Garoppolo is what? In the fan base and nationwide. Type F for it's fair. Type H for it's too harsh. I'm going to split the fan base here, but we want to generate the conversation in the comment section right now. 49ers Report presented to you by our friends at Manscaped. Now, I want you all to think about this as well. During the holiday season, when we cop some of these gifts and we get these gifts awarded to us and given to us by other people, we're like, yes, it's the thought that counts, but also it's the longevity that counts as well. And all of these men's grooming products from Manscaped have versatility, they have longevity, and you will have these products forever. That's why they are worth every single penny, especially the Lawnmower 4.0. It's got versatility to its game, kind of like Deebo Samuel, who can catch balls and run the ball. If you want to clean up your balls, you can do so with the Lawnmower 4.0 or use it to shave up your chest, your back, your beard, your hair, because let's face it, your significant other, they don't want somebody who just has the Amazon rainforest and is hairy as anything. So, manscaped.com/49ers. You get 20% off and free shipping on the best men's grooming products. Cannot wait to talk about George Kittle on today's show because the numbers that he's been putting up historic, and George Kittle is playing at a completely different level than any tight end in the league. He has been downright unstoppable. Since coming off IR from that calf injury several weeks ago, George Kittle has been lighting the NFL on fire, and there has been no opposing defense that's been able to lock him down. He is first in catches with 38. He is first in receiving yards with 530. First in touchdowns among all receivers with 6, and yards after the catch, 233. We thought Deebo Samuel was the Yak King. George Kittle has something to say about that. How about what he's done in the last 2 games? This production, it'll make your jaw drop. 26 catches, 332 yards, 3 touchdowns, average yards per catch at 15. We know that George Kittle, when healthy, is a dominant force, but the way in which he plays really is impressive. It's exciting, and I'm enamored by his physical ability to just overwhelm opponents. George Kittle blocks like Rob Gronkowski. He catches passes like Travis Kelce, and I think it's safe to say right now there is not a better tight end in the National Football League than George Kittle. He has unlocked a completely different dimension of this 49ers offense, and it came last week without Deebo Samuel, and yesterday with Deebo Samuel a little hampered. When George Kittle is running crossers, when he's running down the seam, even out routes, he opens up the field for everybody else, and that's not factoring in what Kittle is able to do in the ground game as well. This Niners offense has been able to take another step. It's become more consistent because of the all-star, all-pro play of George Kittle. And let me ask you this. Is there a better weaponry trio in the NFL right now on the offensive side of the football than Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle? That is a 3-headed monster that is all under contract, that is all young, that is all figuring to be in the Niners' plans over the next several years. And for Kyle Shanahan to have that at his disposal, that's tasty right there. Here's another crazy thing about George Kittle. We talked about Trent Williams being the highest graded player in the NFL among all players on offense and defense this year. Guess who's been the highest graded player according to Pro Football Focus the last 2 weeks on both sides of the ball? George Kittle. That's the elite level of production that he is giving this team. And sometimes his impact not even shown on the stat sheet because of how dominant and how much of a force he is in the ground game as a blocker. Brandon Ayuk said it best after the game yesterday. After watching Kittle go off for the second consecutive week, he said, quote, "That is a different dude." And when you watch George Kittle rumble through opponents, steamroll cats, and just dump truck fools, you say to yourself, that is a different dude. Let's all hope that George Kittle can continue to stay healthy, because what he's giving this offense right now, unbelievable. Truly is unbelievable with what he is able to do on the football field. So, is George Kittle the best tight end in the NFL? He's playing like it right now. And sometimes when you have these arguments, you have to factor in the all-around nature, the all-around skill set, and the all-around game. Again, blocks like Gronk, but is he better athlete than Gronk right now? Yes. Is he better than Darren Waller? I'd probably say yes, because Waller isn't the pass blocker or the run blocker that George Kittle is. And Travis Kelce, kind of one-dimensional. I'd pit him more as a wide receiver. Type Y for Kittle is the best tight end in the league. Type N for no. Niner gang. We have a fun football team to talk about. Subscribe to the channel. And man, let's continue to break all this down because we're having a blast.